So I've just started the first stove using this pine I've split into various heights to give a little variety in the height, which helps with starting it. This is what they both kind of look like. They're loosely filled. I've been finding that if I pack them tightly, sometimes they don't have enough oxygen. So I'm gonna let that one get going, use that flame to get this other one going, and then we'll come back and talk about them and see how they're doing. So I've gotten them both going. Obviously the TOAKS stove is a little bit further ahead, but I'm just gonna let them kind of heat up. I call this kind of like the priming stage. You're kind of tempted to want to put a stove on them, but a pot or whatever you're cooking on them. But my suggestion is to wait until you don't see like any smoke, and just make sure you have a little extra wood. It doesn't take that much wood to begin with, so they're both about primed now. You can see there's really no smoke coming off of them. So the plan is I'm going to boil this, I think it's 850 ml pot of water on the TOAKS for right now while I keep the other one going, and then try to cook some breakfast. But I just kind of want to give you a comparison of the two. There's nothing scientific here, just kind of get a sense of them. And as we go along, I'll talk about some of the positives and negatives of these two stoves in detail. So on the left here we have the TOAKS titanium stove, and on the right here we have a clone of the Silver Fox or Silver Fire, something like that. It's a stainless steel stove. So talk a little bit about the pluses and minuses of each of them. The TOAKS on the left, the first big thing for me is that it's much lighter weight. I think it comes in at around 7.5 or 8 ounces, and the clone on the right comes in at around 13 ounces, which makes sense. It's stainless as opposed to titanium. It's going to be heavier. It's also a little bit larger. The burn chamber is a little bit taller, just a little bit on the TOAKS stove, but it's also narrower, so the cylinder's thinner. That being said, because of the design of this, where it's very tall, it's very tippy, and the reason I started this part of the video was I was feeding just a piece of wood, I'm grabbing one right now, into the stove, and I just accidentally bumped the edge of it, and it wobbled very precariously, very dangerously, and just reminded me of how I have to be very careful around the stove. I might use the same method where I drilled holes with some tent stakes to create a base of some type to stabilize it, but as it is stock, it's a little bit dangerous. Also stock, you can't really use a standard 750 mil. I think this one's actually 800, but that relatively standard size pot, because it'll slip right through. So you can see I put tent stakes that I drilled some holes, and then it sits right inside there, which is actually really great. But again, it's very tall and top heavy. Alternatively, the Silver Fire is relatively stable, though those pot stands on it aren't ideal. I've actually have them at about halfway open, and I find that to work best, as opposed to open them all the way. It makes it very tippy for a same size small pot cup like this. And wise of how they burn, the clone looks better. It looks more even, but I don't know if it necessarily really burns better. It doesn't have a port to fill new wood in, so you kind of have to just squeeze it underneath. Not a huge deal though. I don't find that really inhibits anything. So, and it is nice being stable when you try to use something like a little pan, like I'm going to attempt to do here, that you can actually do that. Because with the top heavy TOAKS, you put a pan on there. I've done it before, and I actually tipped it and dumped all my food, and that's a real possibility. So they're both decent and in their own way, but I don't know. It's hard to say which one's better. I like them both for different reasons. So we'll come back when this water is what it looks like with the pot on the clone of the Silver Fox or Silver Fire or whatever it is. I actually had both of them go out once. That's one of the challenges of these stoves, is you don't want, if you stack too much wood, you'll smother them. If you don't put enough wood, they suddenly will go out because they burn up to the last, you know, calorie of energy, and then just suddenly go out. So you kind of got to be mindful of them and feed them carefully. So I have my potatoes. The water that I was boiling was to rehydrate my potatoes, and I'm cooking some Spam potatoes right now and put some cheese and egg in it. I wanted to revisit. So you can see I've let the TOAKS burn out, and I still got the clone going. And I'm gonna actually have to take that off for a second. In wise of just convenience, I think the Silver Fire has it. The wider base, the little bit bigger chamber seems to make it a lot easier to work with. It's a lot heavier, and not only that, but one thing I forgot to mention is with the TOAKS you can actually nest your Nalgene, or what, you know, standard size Nalgene container inside of it, which I really like for space savings that you can't do with the Silver Fire. However, wise of just ease of keeping it going and the stability of your whatever you're cooking on these pot stands relative to, you know, that really tippy design of this one. I don't know, I just like it more. It's a hard decision. If I can get the TOAKS to be a little more stable with a little bit of modding, I might vote that one, but for now I think I like the Silver Fire more. I just want to show you the fruits of my labor. I've had this stove going now for maybe about an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half. You know, it dies down and then you got to pick it back up. Sometimes pull the pan off and blow on it, but you know, it's still got a pretty consistent flame. I don't know, I'm just more leaning towards this one, and I use this one far more because of its lightweight portability, but this one just seems to work far better for what I'm trying to do, and cleaner flame, easier to start back up, more stable, just not as portable and a little bit heavier. So I'm gonna enjoy this meal as it finishes cooking here, and if you have any questions or anything, leave them down in the comments and I'll try to answer them. A lot of people there's not a lot of videos on these, and those that do use them seem to use them improperly for how they prime them and such. So thanks.